I'm Mikey Madison. I'm so happy to be here in the closet.
I watched all 8 of Oscar-winning actress Mikey Madison's Criterion Closet picks and ranked them according to which ones I liked the most.
Oh, okay, Takeout. I mean, this is obviously one of Sean Baker's first films.
Of course she would pick a film from Sean Baker, and I'm glad she did because Sean Baker is one of my favorite directors at the moment, and this film did not disappoint. Takeout, which he co-directed with Ching Sao, is about a Chinese immigrant trying to pay off his debt by doing deliveries for a Chinese takeout restaurant in New York City. The documentary, cinema verite type camera movements really give this film a texture and a reality to it that causes the characters and the environment to come to life and make the audience feel that they are too on a journey with these characters. It puts the audience quite frankly into working class hell as we follow the main character who is forced to bike his way through torrential downpours, delivering food only to receive a couple dollars in tips at a time. There are actually 2 filmmaking techniques that I want to talk about in regards to this movie. The first one being that the inciting incident of this film happens within like the first minute of the film, which I think is a brilliant idea for indie filmmakers. A lot of people in the industry will tell amateur filmmakers, amateur screenwriters to get their inciting incident, that event that propels the story forward, put that within the first 10 pages of your script. Well, this movie gets it probably within the first 1 page, and I think that's a brilliant idea for low budget films that don't have much to work with. Don't give your audience a chance to sleep. Just go right at them with the inciting incident, hook them immediately. The second thing I want to talk about is the monotony of the middle of this movie, because the middle of this movie is pretty repetitive. All we see for the most part is this man going from door to door to door delivering Chinese takeout orders and getting $1 or $2 tips at a time. And it's very repetitive. And in a traditional screenwriting sense, this is not a narrative structure you would see in big budget movies that are trying to appeal to the masses, because it is a bit tedious, but that is the point. It is intentionally tedious because it helps to put the audience into the mindset, into the situation that this character is. It gives us the sense of a working class hell, that sense of being stuck in a job you cannot escape from, and that is the point of this film. I love this film and I rank it number 4.
Gilda, this is a classic film that I haven't seen.
The next film is Gilda, and this film stars Glenn Ford and Rita Hayworth in fantastic roles as an estranged couple fumbling their way through a casino in post-World War II Argentina. And if you know anything about Argentina after World War II, you know that a lot of people from a certain group in a certain European country moved there after the war, and so that creates a very interesting environment for a film, and this film partly lived up to that, but not fully. I thought the first half of this film was very entertaining with so many different characters and motivations and plot lines that kept you guessing as to what was happening and what was going on and who was doing who and all that stuff. And I love Glenn Ford's gentle and subtle scumminess and Rita Hayworth's manipulative charm and beauty and the mysteries of their interactions. But honestly, this movie just kind of fell off during the second half of this film when the character motivations and the plot just got a lot more messy, and the message of the film almost seemed to be domestic abuse solves everything. I rank it number 8.
Oh, Eyes Without... Okay, I was again attracted to the pink spine. But Eyes Without a Face.
No, I have talked about this movie several times during these Criterion Closet reviews. It seems like almost every person picks this movie, and I understand why, because it is one of my favorite movies from the 60s. But as I said, I've talked about this movie a lot, so I'm just going to go on to the next one. I rank it number 2.
Okay, The Kid. Charlie Chaplin.
I have to admit, every time I watch a Charlie Chaplin movie, I do get charmed, and this movie is no exception. The Kid is about a woman who can no longer afford to have the child she just gave birth to because her husband left her, so instead she tries to give it to a rich person to take care of, but due to an accident, Charlie Chaplin's character, the Tramp, gets custody of the kid instead. Shenanigans ensue. I'm honestly surprised at how much character I find in these old silent films, because you would think that a movie without sound would not lend itself to deep emotional characters, but I think the opposite is true, and I think that just goes back to one of the main core principles of filmmaking: show, don't tell. And I think a lot of movies nowadays honestly rely on sound too much. They rely on dialogue too much to get their point across and to convey who their characters are, and I think they could learn a lot from movies like The Kid. Another thing I love about this movie, and most of of the comedic silent films of this era is that this film is undercranked, and that just basically means that it looks like it is sped up a little bit. Just look at how funny this shot of the kid running away is. Best shot in cinema history, honestly. There's a great video on the Criterion channel of the benefits of undercranking a film in this way, and I think that you guys should go watch it if you're interested in that. I rank it number 6.
And then, you know, Dennis Hopper, Easy Rider.
Let me tell you, Mikey Madison knows her film history because she picked 2 movies on this list that are very interesting, because this movie, Easy Rider, was one of the first movies that kind of spurred this renaissance of directors having more freedom from studios to do their own thing, and the other film she chose that we'll talk about later on kind of ended that because it performed so badly. But this film did not perform badly. In fact, it was an astounding success. Quentin Tarantino says that this film is the quintessential 60s film, essentially being a time capsule for that period in time. It was directed by Dennis Hopper and is honestly a very experimental type of film, not only in its pacing but also in its editing and its ending. It's an incredible piece of art that sets out to challenge both the rules of filmmaking and the rules that governed American society and the societal norms infested in it. The director Dennis Hopper said that this movie is about 2 men trying to find America but not being able to find it. Or as I like to interpret it, I think it's about 2 men trying to find freedom in a land that claims to be free, but the freedom they find, the freedom that is sold to them in terms of capitalism and monetary accumulation, is not true freedom at all. There's a great scene where these men who are traveling across America are sitting next to a makeshift campfire where one of them says that the same people who preach about how free they are in America, when they come into contact with someone who is actually free, they can't stand it, and they will discriminate against that person as a result. And what's ironic about this movie is what I said earlier. This movie was so successful that it kind of spurred a movement of freedom in the directors of America and giving the directors more freedom in what they could create. That is, at least until the next movie came along. I rank it number 5.
And someone suggested closing my eyes and just like picking something, so I'll do that. Heaven's Gate. Okay.
In 1980, coming off the success of The Deer Hunter, the auteur filmmaker Michael Cimino was given a large sum of money to make a film about the American West. But production troubles and a stubborn director caused the budget of this movie to only get bigger and bigger and bigger as production went on. And so it was a big surprise when this movie debuted and was widely panned as the worst movie of all time. If you want more context for this, just go watch the review on this movie by Siskel and Ebert. They completely tear this movie apart. But what's interesting to me as a first-time watcher of this movie is that I think this is a really good movie. It's a wide-sprawling epic about the Johnson County War, which was an actual event that took place in 1892 in Wyoming, where the United States government essentially sanctioned the killing of a group of immigrants they believed were stealing cattle. This film is exaggerated from the actual events a bit, but it's still a riveting tale about the determination of immigrants and the prevailing forces against them. It's also about the rich versus the poor, about toxic versus positive masculinity, jealousy and love, and standing up for those less fortunate than you. It was also extremely long, I think over 5 hours long when they first released this film, and I believe the director even took the film out of theaters and recut it to a 3.5 hour version and then put it back in theaters, and it still did bad. But one thing to note, if you were gonna watch this movie, it's actually kind of hard to find that 3.5 hour version. The version that is on Tubi, the version that I watched, was only like 2.5 hours long. So they cut an hour out of the movie that was already cut down from 5 hours. And the thing about that is they actually cut some very important stuff out of that version and left in some kind of more meandering scenes that don't really add to the plot of the film as much. All that to say, I think the perfectly cut version of this film doesn't yet exist, but I am so glad that this film is getting another chance because I do think it's a very good film, and I think it's very interesting that Mikey Madison picked both this and Easy Rider because they both bookend kind of a decade of important cinema history, and I like that. I rank it number 7.
Oh, okay. Down here, 5 easy pieces.
This movie kind of was the opposite of Gilda to me because this movie I think had more of a boring, uninteresting first half of the film, but the second half of the film absolutely made up for it and then some. Because this film kind of takes its time in the first half laying the bricks, the foundation of the character that Jack Nicholson plays, and you are only rewarded at the end of the film once you get to know that character more. And I think that's essentially why I like this movie, is because of the main character. character. I think I just connected with this very flawed character who struggles to express himself due to his own internal struggles with happiness and finding meaning in a life that has slipped out of his hands. Because that's essentially what this film is about. It's about the idea that we might feel as humans like we have a purpose, a destiny, something great to contribute to the world, but the universe just doesn't align itself in a way that allows us to pursue that destiny. And when that happens, when our real lives don't align with the destiny we perceive for ourselves, a lot of unhappiness can manifest itself. And also, this film just has really great dialogue. There's one famous scene that happens in this cafe right here, and there is another piece of dialogue towards the end of this film that I think is literally one of the best lines of dialogue I have heard in a very long time. I rank it number 3.
The piano teacher, the Isabelle Huppert.
Is it hot in here? This movie is essentially about the psychology of a person who has repressed romantic and sexual desires and how those desires manifest themselves in an unhealthy way and create a distorted sense of what relationships should be. I thought this movie was absolutely fantastic, primarily because I kind of connected to the main character, Erica, in this film. Because I'll be honest for a second, while I wasn't nearly as controlled or repressed as Erica growing up, I did grow up in a religious environment that frowned upon, typical relationship stuff, even frowned upon dating in some aspects. I read the book I Kissed Dating Goodbye in college, and I think it led me to have a very unbalanced and unhealthy view of relationships. And I can connect with Erica in that sense, and I can see how the repression in her life caused her to do things and view relationships in the way that she did. And so if you are not a sensitive movie watcher, if you can handle tough topics, I highly recommend this movie because it is a great character study, but there are some triggering aspects to it that some people might not like. However, I rank it number 1. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.